If there was a Corvette clique in Waco, Texas when Jimmy C. Perkins was growing up, he was not a part of it. He was into hot rods as a teenager and drag racing. Little did he know that he would one day hold the future of the Corvette in the palm of his hand. Just out of Baylor University, Jim got a job in 1960 sorting parts at a Chevrolet warehouse. It launched a career that took him to the highest levels of 3 famous car companies and finds him today one of the most powerful and popular car guys in America.
If you were to do a Hollywood movie, you know, and you want to talk about some guy from West Texas that made good and was an absolute character, it was Jim Perkins. First of all, you know, I don't know if you know it or not, but Jim Perkins started off in the car business. Now, not a lot of people know this, but he started off repoing cars.
He's great friends with A.J. Foyt, and at one time, they actually drag raced against each other down in Texas.
Sure, he broke all of A.J. Foyt's drag racing records. You just ask him, he'll tell you that.
Chevy was and is the largest car division in the largest car company in the world. Chevy salespeople bled bowtie blue. They oozed pride. Jim thrived in their company. His route up the ladder at Chevy took him hither and yon. He was San Diego's zone manager, Dallas zone manager, director of marketing policy, and dealer relations for all of General Motors, and assistant general sales manager at Buick. He left the company in 1984 to join Toyota. But 4.5 years later, Jim did what few GM executives have ever done. He came back, and in May of 1989, he succeeded retiring Bob Berger as Chevy general manager.
When I met him, obviously it wasn't how I envisioned maybe somebody from Toyota. Obviously, this kind of powerful man from Texas knew everything about Chevrolets, and I think from then on, you know, our relationship grew, and nobody had a greater sense of Chevrolet's future, and of course, he knew everything about the history of the bowtie division. So it was great. I learned so much from him.
His first job? Rekindled the Chevy pride of the 60s in an organization demoralized by GM's travails of the late 80s. His manner was pure Texas. Straight talk, kid gloves over iron fists. His style, up close and personal.
Jim Perkins is the kind of guy that'll walk right up to you, slap you on the back, and say, let's go do that car. Let's get it done, Joe, and let's make sure we deliver something we're both proud of. And just a fabulous guy to work with.
Jim's a person that you want to work for. I was there when he walked into a division that was losing money and had no morale at all. Jim walked in, and within several years, had everybody enthusiastic and the division profitable.
Quite frankly, and this is my opinion, and I think a lot of people would share it because they were there and saw what I saw, Jim Perkins literally saved Chevrolet Motor Division, and in the process, he saved General Motors. I don't think anybody in the outside world understands how close General Motors came to going out of business the early part of this decade.
His symbol was a lapel pin, a tiny replica of the Chevy bowtie emblem, and the single word, proud.
There was a very special lapel pin that was available at that time in limited quantities that Jim brought to the Chevrolet organization when he arrived. It was something that the Chevrolet organization needed, and it was a gold pin that said Chevy Proud on it. And those were only owned by people who'd done something significant. And Jeff was given the opportunity to give Jim Perkins his first ride in the Serve Mule. Jim Perkins took his Chevrolet Proud badge off of his lapel and pinned it on Jeff as a thank you for the tremendous outpouring of energy that had gone into the construction of this vehicle. And I think it was the proudest day in that man's life.
This little pin that I'm wearing is just one of the many little tools he used to reinstitute some pride in the organization. Chevy Proud, it says. And we all wore them, and we knew what it meant.
Jim did a lot in the 7 years he ran Chevy. He increased truck production. He won the respect and admiration of dealers. He drove 3 Indy 500 pace cars. He supervised a Chevy racing program that produced 5 NASCAR manufacturers' championships and 6 Indy 500 victories. He strengthened Chevy's role in product design and development. He helped Chevy people come to grips with the realities of downsizing and reorganizing. And he saved the Corvette.
Let me take you back to the early 90s. You know, General Motors as a company was really, really struggling, and we were losing billions of dollars a year. So consequently, putting a pretty significant investment into the new Corvette was not too high on anybody's priority, because we had too many other car programs that also depended on money at the time. But there were a few zealots in the company. I probably consider myself and my team one of them at the mid-sized car group. And then Jim Perkins, you know, from Chevrolet, that I think we really believed that we couldn't let Corvette die. So whenever I needed some little extra money or something to go, you know, start to do some of the early work on the car, I could always go to Jim and know I got support.
Jim's contribution to Corvette, I think, is profound. I think you'd sum it up in a couple of words. He basically saved the car from extinction.
Without Jim Perkins, there would not be a C5 Corvette. There were a lot of people that supported Corvette, but very few people who would stand up and put their job and their money behind that commitment. And Jim Perkins did that. In fact, he funded the served car, which was fundamental in getting the vehicle not only designed and built, but also approved by management. And he literally offered management the chance to give him no job if they didn't give him a Corvette.
He did whatever it took to get that car to production. And I'm sure there's a lot of stories been printed about the risk that Jim took to make it happen.
And it was that Jim Perkins' insight into just what we needed at that time that I think was a big enabler of the 5th generation Corvette. And I'll always be in his debt for doing that.
When the new C5 Corvette was struggling a little bit, the engineering team, the platform team, had a great idea, a whole new powertrain and a whole new structure for the new C5. It was basically still in a mock-up and paper and theory stage. When it came down to the dollars and cents, the corporation was very reluctant in kicking that project off as far as the new production vehicle. The vote was basically 50-50 whether the car would even be approved. And so what Jim Perkins did was he went to the engineering community and said, look, he said, we've got just the mock-ups here, we've just got theory. What if we take this project on and let's build the first prototype, and we'll fund it, and let's see where this thing goes.
He sure as hell knows what a Corvette means to Chevrolet Motor Division.
I always felt extremely confident that no matter how difficult the job would get or the turbulent times in General Motors, and they were difficult, I knew that Jim would be there for this program, for this project, for this car, because he loved it so much and he knew how important it was to General Motors. So that was always there fortifying me, not just in 1 or 2 examples, but many examples, and the continuous, I'd say the continuous force that Jim Perkins applied in his time as the Chevrolet general manager.
He brought out 16 new vehicle lines and demanded improvement in Chevy's reputation for quality and customer satisfaction.
All too frequently, I know I stooped to dragging Jim Perkins onto a stage somewhere and asking him to just kind of tap dance for the press. And say something, for heaven's sakes, I can't talk about this car very much longer. And it never failed to work. Jim would get up there and answer questions. He would admit to deficiencies. He'd tell him what he was going to do. And sure enough, a few years later, it would happen. And it was just like magic to be able to put him in front of a group of jaded automotive journalists who didn't think much of Chevrolet in those days, and let him hold forth and answer their questions. And it was a secret weapon as far as I was concerned in the PR business. I could not have gotten through that period of time without somebody like Jim Perkins.
In particular, Jim loved people and he loved dealers. I remember we used to have a dealer meeting every 2 years, and the Chevrolet people would go to the meeting. And Jim would be up at the crack of dawn talking to dealers, and he'd be there until midnight talking to dealers. And one day, at the reception in the evening, Barbara, his wife, comes running in and grabs Jim by the arm and says, Jim's going to bed. He's had enough of this. And that's what it took to put that man to bed when he had dealers around.
Where you wouldn't normally see a general manager out there sitting alongside the car and kind of talking, resting on his elbows and talking to the public coming through the door. He had a charisma that I've never seen before in a general manager. How he could relate to people and how he understood the product and how that met the buying public.
He appreciated suppliers and he understood their needs, and he also had the ability to impress us with Chevrolet's needs and Corvette's needs.
His unstinting generosity with Chevy's time and treasure kept the National Corvette Museum viable through its early years.
His induction into the Hall of Fame is only most fitting because beyond his many contributions to Corvette over the years, as I recall, he was the principal driving force in the establishment of the National Corvette Museum.
The Corvette Museum probably wouldn't be there today if it wasn't for a guy like Jim Perkins.
With hundreds on hand, he helped sing Happy Birthday to Zora Arkus Duntoff on the occasion of Zora's 80th.
He always had a way of making you feel a part of his world, and I think that's one of the things I love the most about him. He always made you feel a part of what he was doing. You could get inside Jim Perkins.
Right in the midst of the lunch hour, Jim Perkins hopped in a souped-up Camaro that happened to be parked there that somebody wanted him to take a look at, and proceeded to go ripping around the track at full bore. And we almost got thrown out of the track. I mean, the track manager was skinning me alive. And I said, what can I do? He's the boss.
In August 1997, Jim was named president and CEO of the Charlotte-based Hendrick Automotive Group, one of the nation's largest automotive retailers. Although Jim spends most of his time in Charlotte, he and wife Barbara maintain a home in Paradise Valley, Arizona. That's where they keep his collection of vintage Chevys, including a very quick 57 Bel Air Sport Coupe, a rare 69 Camaro RSSS, a 55 Bel Air, a 38 Street Rod, and a 1993 Indy 500 Camaro Pace replica with a factory-installed manual tranny, the only one in existence.
There are many Jim Perkinses, I think. The ones that I think about, though, is the Jim Perkins with this enormous sense of humor.
And he infused a little country humor into the workaday world. It was a little unusual for General Motors, but it was needed. And Jim used to talk about all of these cars he inherited with all this red accents on them. He said, for me, it's kind of like putting lipstick on a pig.
There's probably no one, and probably never will be, another one that has the charisma and love of cars that Jim Perkins has. And his relationship to customers and dealers and his employees, and how he supported them, and how the total understanding of product and people that were unsurpassed by any manager that I've dealt with in all the 36 years I've been at Chevrolet.
I would say that Jim Perkins was a real maestro when it came to putting together an organization that would care passionately about building exciting automobiles.
The consummate car guy and a good friend.
Jim Perkins is a man of great integrity, great passion, great humor, and is so smart he scares me.
Jim Perkins is my hero.